Well, good morning. First off, I appreciate your patience and the patience of the community. It's been a tough 24 hours, so appreciate you being here. Understand your concern of wanting to know, our perspective and where we go from here, and that's why I'm here today. To the extent possible, I want the Bailey family to know that I understand the frustration and the anguish and the pain that comes from losing a loved one in the tragic events that occurred back in June. At the same time, also the understanding that the decision of the special prosecutor was not one that they wanted. So I understand that to the extent I can. I'm grateful for the peaceful and well-organized demonstrations that have occurred over the last few months and the cooperation that we've had with those that want to express their concern about the way things are handled by their police department. Appreciate all the members of the community, both faith-based and community-based, that have spent a great deal of time with me, helping me work through this tragic event, and at the same time working with the community and helping them process and understand our internal processes. And that's been a great comfort to me, and I think it will continue to be a comfort, and it's much appreciated from me. Proud of the resolve of our officers. It's difficult with the national climate, with the frustration that many people feel about systems within society, and so often that frustration is taken out on police officers. And I think they've done a good job of realizing the difference between that overall concern about systems and the way things are, and not taking it personally. And I commend them for that, and it reassures me that that will continue to happen here in the city of Indianapolis. As I explained immediately after the police action shooting here in this room to most of you all, two investigations began that day. One was a criminal investigation and one was administrative in nature. I explained the paths that those two would take. Yesterday, that criminal case came to a conclusion with the decision of the special prosecutor to not file any criminal charges on the two officers. I want you to know that the administrative process started at the same time and has been running parallel. And that consisted of three kind of different things. One is the criminal investigation, so anything criminal that was being gleaned in that investigation was being turned over to our internal affairs. Internal affairs was running an investigation at the same time, which included compelled statements by the two officers involved in the shooting. Our training academy was also investigating the tactics and the training around the actions of the officers. So for the last 3 months, those investigations have continued. We are ready with that. We are prepared for that, and that was at my insistence that it doesn't make sense to me that there should be this long time frame between the time the criminal decision has been made and we as a police department make an administrative decision. That has not occurred in the past, but that will occur from now on. And this, as tragic as it is a great start to that and a great test. And as long as I'm chief, that's how it will happen. And I hope to place in process that process so that chiefs afterwards can continue that. The reason we had to wait for the criminal determination is because of those compelled statements by the officers that cannot be used against them in a court of law. Now that the criminal determination has been made, that administrative case can come to a conclusion. So I wanted to walk you through what I've done. So around 3 p.m. yesterday, all the investigative findings, those that I just talked about, those from the internal affairs, those from the training academy, those from the criminal investigation, including the 16 pages that the St. Joseph prosecutor sent out yesterday were sent to the individuals that will be sitting on the Firearms Review Board. I've asked them to individually review all that material, identify any questions or gaps that they may see in all of those investigations. At the same time, we will be asking the prosecutor in St. Joseph to give us any other information that he gleaned from his criminal investigation. All that has been given to our officers, and any additional information that we receive will be given to them. That Firearms Review Board makeup consists of the commander of the Internal Affairs Division, the commander of the Criminal Investigations Division, the commander of the Training Academy, a lieutenant from the division of the officers, so in this case it's the Operations Division, and then a peer of the two officers, which is a person of the same rank of the two officers. That board is experienced and is already sitting and has already received that material. I've asked them to identify those gaps and to have them to the chairman of that committee, who in this case is the commander of the Investigations Division. That is to be in at 5 p.m. November 2nd, which is this Thursday, tomorrow. We will address those throughout that day and through the night. At 8 a.m. on November 3rd, that Firearms Review Board will meet collectively and address any additional questions that they may have, discuss amongst themselves the materials that they have reviewed. And then I have also asked all the investigators that have been involved in this process, along with the two officers, to be prepared Friday to be brought into that Firearms Review Board and to answer any questions that they might have that they don't already have answers to. The expectation is that they will review all that. At some point, that will come to me, a decision will come to me. What that review board does is it determines in compliance or out of compliance of our training and policy and procedures. That will come to me. There are three options for me. I can agree with the recommendation, I can disagree with the recommendation, or I can kick it back for more information. Ultimately, whatever that decision is, I'll take that under advisement. I'll spend some time reviewing with the chairman and any additional questions that I have. I will kick back to them and have them review that. At some point, all my questions will be answered to the extent they can. I will send, and collectively, I don't know that they know this, but I will pull them in and we will discuss it together, but ultimately it will be my decision. If there are any policy violations, any discipline that occurs is my responsibility. That discipline can run the gamut, and I'm prepared to make that decision based on the information that's given to me. I'll do that as soon as possible. At the same time, making sure that this is a thorough process and that any questions that can be answered, I have those answers available to me. Any questions?
So, Chief, I guess the question is, if it comes across that the officers follow departmental procedure the way it's spelled out, could the issue be not necessarily the officers and their performance, but the department policies itself? I mean, these were younger officers. It was a late night shift. We usually sometimes have more experience. That's when problems will occur. So, is the issue the officers per se, or is it a possibility that it's just here's a gap in IMPD's policy and procedure that we need to fix, but the officers did exactly what they were supposed to do?
So that's the great purpose of these administrative reviews, and we hope to glean anything that we can out of those that makes us a better police department. I think that's the expectation of the community too.
During this process, will you at all have any contact, whether it be through email, questions answering, with the two officers before you make a final decision? Is that
so? Last time I had communication with the officers was last week. It was anticipation of a criminal decision, a determination being made, and I asked them to be available. Actually, it was Wednesday because I thought this decision might come a little earlier. But the last conversation I had with them was to prepare them to answer any questions that they might have in front of the Firearms Review Board. Since then, I have not had any communication to them about their preparation for Friday was done through the chairman of the Firearms Review Board.
Will you be in communications with their direct supervisors, some of their colleagues before you make a final decision? Are you interested in what their coworkers think of all that?
You know, I'll wait to see what information comes out of the Firearms Review Board, and if I have if there's a need for that, then I would do that.
What has been
Yes.
the status of the officers since the day of the shooting?
The officers are on administrative duties. They are working in non-police roles. They're still being paid. That status will change as soon as there's a decision made in the administrative review process. They're like any of us. They have their due process, and we're trying to get that done.
What is the ethnic makeup of the two officers?
If you look at our HR files, both are white males. Officer Howard will tell you that he's biracial. I think his father is African American.
Chief, the civil rights investigation is still ongoing. Have you had contact with the FBI?
I'm sorry. I'll take him, and then I'll come to you.
The civil rights investigation is still ongoing. Have you had any contact with the FBI or the U.S. District Attorney Office?
Last time I had contact with the FBI was probably a couple weeks ago. I have not had any conversation with the prosecutor in St. Joseph County, so any information that I've gleaned has been through either the FBI, the officer of the attorney for the officers, or Prosecutor Curry. I reached out to them to see if they were getting what they needed from the criminal investigation from St. Joseph County. So that's the only conversations I've had with them. I think they're in the position that we are in. We're waiting on that information to come. But I know it's still an open investigation, and that they have asked for that, their criminal part of the investigation.
I've talked to people in the community that are very concerned about the police policy that a police officer can just say that I was in fear of my life, and that justifies them taking somebody's life when the evidence doesn't show that. When you look at this situation with Aaron Bailey, he was not armed, he was moving from the police, and he was shot in the back. Now, if that makes you afraid, then what are you doing on the police force? So will you, in your looking at the administrative process, be looking at how a person or a police officer can say, in my mind, I was afraid, even though the evidence, person unarmed, person moving from you. If I tried to do that, I don't think that the court would buy that. Why is it that the special prosecutor is buying that logic? Because you can define anything and justify anything in your mind. People see.
Yeah, so I can't answer for the prosecutor and on his decision. You'd have to ask him that. What I can tell you is that I understand that if we have an officer that's fearful and we have someone that's been pulled over that's fearful, that's a bad combination. A lot of the discussion around that understanding kind of takes us to implicit bias, right? One of the things that we talked about with the mayor's help back in July were some of the things that we were going to do. So there are a lot of things that we have started in process. We had fair and impartial policing from Dr. Lori Fredette, which is implicit bias training. We had our first taste of that with 15 of our command staff and then 15 community members that were in there. Talks about the science. We all have implicit bias, so it was a little different than training we've gotten in the past, because there's always been that sense, at least in our organization as a police officer, that there was some sort of bias on the other side as they were discussing it. And so it was hard to understand and buy into that. But this does a real good job of laying out the science behind that. And so you have officers now that feel like, well, wait a minute, everybody has these biases. The important part is that I'm not acting upon that. And so that's what we're going to work towards. And in 2018, all of our officers will be trained in the fair and impartial policing.
Did you hear the statements that Aaron Bailey's daughter made last night? And I'm wondering what your impression of those were, if you did hear them. Specifically, her claim that the story that came out in the prosecutor's report yesterday, many of those details were not provided to her early
Yeah, so my guess is she's referring, so I didn't hear all of her statement. My guess is she's referring to the initial police report and what the public would receive. But that's how we do those investigations. There's an initial, here's the basis of what happened, but everything else is investigatory in nature and is not public information. And so that was gleaned through his investigation. That's why she wouldn't have seen that before.
Chief, what does this do for IMPD community relations? There's a certain segment of the community will always believe that, hey, even though this was a prosecutor from St. Joe, all those people stick together, prosecutors, law enforcement, police officers. What does this do for the relationships you folks are trying to build with the community?
So it could go two ways, right? And probably depending on the way we respond. My hope is, and it's been reinforced to me just over the last few hours, from people within the community that are concerned about the decision that was made with the prosecutor, but are hopeful in their police department in reviewing things as a whole and at some point being able to explain to the extent possible what occurred and what we're going to do, if anything, to keep that from occurring again.
At the risk of sounding presumptuous, if these officers are cleared by you to return to work, do they have to go through some fit for duty process before they're put back on the street? And so, how can the public be assured that these are two officers returned to the street that should be?
So everyone that is involved in a police action shooting or any critical incident, we will send them for a psychological evaluation before they do return to the street. We also spend some time with our Office of Professional Development and Wellness in looking at that officer and how they're handling the situation. And it'll be a case-by-case, it's a case-by-case situation, and it will be so with these officers also.
Two more questions.
Do you expect, when we've had a time when it's difficult for detectives to convince people to come forward with information, that this will be one more reason why people in the community will say, I'm just never going to cooperate with IMPD?
I hope they don't take that, make that decision. And again, I think similar to how I answered here, that it's incumbent upon us to build that trust, and how we react to this situation and how transparent and open we are, I think will help with that.
Chief, you said the administrative review is complete by the Firearms Board. When they send that over, do they have recommendations on what they believe the findings should be, or is it just, here's what the statements were, you guys deal with it?
Here's what we found, and then the Firearms Review Board deals with it. But it doesn't keep the Firearms Review Board from bringing those experts in and saying, based on your training and experience, what is your opinion in this situation
But they'll have, in our view, this is our belief as to whether they comply with the procedures, and then the review board checks that, and then you check that.
Correct.
All right, thank you, guys. Any more questions, you can forward those to the Public Affairs Office. We'll make sure that the chief has an opportunity to answer.
I'll take his question.
There was a federal investigation. What's the status of that?
I don't know. So the FBI, until they have an answer, they won't say anything to me. I know typically, historically, they wait until everything is played out before they finalize their decision. I do know that they have all of the criminal information that we have, and that they expect to get that from St. Joseph's County.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.